Right now, in the modern working world, people are facing a level of uncertainty that's never before been experienced. And it's having a significant impact on ourselves and on the teams that we work with. People are feeling burnout, unfulfilled, and an overwhelming sense of being lost. But it didn't start out that way, did it? And it doesn't have to be that way. I want you to think back to the first day of the job that you have right now. If you were anything like me, you showed up early, you had your cup of coffee, you're gonna take on the world, and then on day 500, you wanna switch the decaf and the regular coffee just to watch the chaos unfold. If you're laughing, you've thought about doing it. What happened? What happened between day 1 and day 500? Nobody shows up on the first day of work and goes, I can't wait to be mediocre. Of course not. In fact, I would argue that every single one of us started from a place where we were engaged, where we saw deeper purpose in our work, but it gets overshadowed by the day-to-day minutia, the small tasks, the functions, the responsibility of our work. We forget what doing a great job means to all those that depend on us. I want to help you remember. Today, I'm going to share with you 2 of the most important tools that you can use to rediscover, reclaim, and reconnect to deeper purpose in your work as an event planner. 20 years ago, I was offered a dream job, literally the coolest job in the world. Someone came to me and goes, Joshua, how would you like to live in the mountains of Colorado for the summer, go down extreme whitewater rapids, and play guitar around the campfire for our guests? Well, I say, that sounds awesome. It sounds too good to be true. And in the back of my mind, I figured I had like a 20% chance of waking up in a bathtub full of ice, missing a kidney. But at 20%, I'll take my odds. So I accepted the role as a whitewater rafting guide, still wondering, what's the catch? Oh, there was a catch. It turns out the catch was I would be living like it was the 1800s. You laugh, but to give you an understanding of how rustic this was, every morning I would have to go make coffee in a giant metal pot over open fire. Rustic. Now, we ran a very modest operation, but we strive to create memorable experiences for every guest that would join us on the river. And my favorite part of the job was when we got all of our guests down to the river's edge to explain the safety measures we needed on the river that day. I would start my safety briefing by saying there's class 3, 4, and 5 whitewater on this river. People get hurt and killed out here every year. I'm not trying to terrify you, but I need you to know the severity of the river you're about to find yourself on. Now that I had their attention, we'd go into the proper protocols, procedures, and safety measures in the boat. And after that was done, me and the guides, we would divide all of the guests into the different boats. Now, as the first-year river guide, do you think I was given all the athletic guests for my boat? I was not. Luckily, today I'm going to choose my crew. You, the audience, have now been enlisted in Joshua's boat, and you look like a great bunch. Now, what we're going to have to do today before we get into our first rapid is learn how to properly hold our paddle. So I want everybody to grab the shaft of your paddle for me right there in the middle. It's a long, skinny part. And then I want you to grab on top of the T-grip. Don't grab underneath because you lose leverage. Grab on top. We're going to practice all forward 1, all forward 2, all back 1. Y'all might be my best crew yet. Now, we've got some great rapids today. We have wall slammer, boat eater, Satan's suckhole. It's going to be a lot of fun. But there's a lot of obstacles in the river. We're going to need to maneuver the boat. So I'm going to split the boat in half right here. You are now the left side of the boat, and you are now the right side of the boat. So both sides of the boat, grab your paddle, and we're going to practice with our sides. Left forward 1, right forward 1. Left back 1, right back 1. You're looking great. I think you're ready. Here comes the first rapid. Everybody grab your paddle. Here we go. All back 1, all forward 2, left forward 1, right back 1, left forward 2, right back. What are you doing? We're on the rocks. See, this is a big problem for me as a river guide because every human being in my boat is my responsibility, and something you may not realize is that for every one of my guests that falls out of my boat means that I have to buy the other guys a 6-pack of beer. Now, on a normal day, we'd get the guests back to our base camp mid-afternoon, and me and the guides would cook these elaborate multi-course meals over open fire. The guests would eat, and then me and the guides would clean all the dishes and light a large campfire for our guests. Many nights they would say, Josh, go get your guitar and come play songs that everybody knows around the campfire. So till late into the evening, I'd be playing songs until the guests would go back to their tents, and I would make my way back to my tent to set my battery-powered alarm clock for 5:30 the next morning to do it all over again. And it happened like this day after day after day. New guests would arrive. I'd make the same lame jokes about the rapids. We'd cook the same meals, and I'd play the same tired songs around the campfire. What started out as the coolest job I could possibly imagine is slowly eroded into a list of tasks to be completed and personalities to be managed. I stopped caring about my work. I was physically present, but I was just going through the motions. You can call it disengagement, call it quiet quitting, call it whatever you'd like to call it. What had really happened is I stopped seeing purpose in the work that I was doing. And one day we were on the river, and one of my guests lost his paddle at the top of a rapid, and he erupted into this anger and frustration. And so I took a moment to explain, it's all right, our paddles, they float. We can pick it up after the rapids. And I realized what was happening to my guest in my boat was the exact same thing that was happening to me in my role as a river guide. You see, he lost his paddle, and he felt powerless in the direction of the boat or in how we navigated these obstacles. I had lost my sense of purpose, and I felt just as helpless. But the epiphany is that just like that paddle, our sense of purpose in our work can be reclaimed. So, the first tool that we can use to reclaim purpose in our work is to move towards meaning. So we're very good about talking about what our role is. It's our title. For you, your role is event planner. It's easy to define. It sits on your email signature, it's in your LinkedIn profile. But to be honest, that's not compelling to our innate desire as humans for some semblance of purpose. You're also very good about talking about what somebody in your role does. It's all the KPIs, the tasks, the functions that you have to do in your role. So it's managing the events, handling vendors, hiring crazy speakers. But once again, what somebody in our role does is not compelling. What we need to improve is our ability to remember what doing a great job means to those that depend on us. So you as event planners, the work you're doing matters so much, but it's easy to forget that when we're dealing with deadlines and scheduling. So I'm going to try and help you grab your paddle for a minute. When you do a great job as an event planner, it means you're bringing together a group of people that share similar fears, hopes, desires. You're bringing these people together in a place where they can realize that they're not alone. In fact, to every person that's involved in your events, what you're really providing them with is something so much deeper. You're providing them with peace of mind. The work you're doing matters so much to those that depend on you, but it's easy for us to forget. The second tool that you can use is to direct your perceptions. Now, I remember the first time I heard the screams coming from our guest bathroom. I come running in there and I find my oldest son, Luke, who was 4 years old at the time, and he's washing his hands and screaming at the top of his lungs. So after a few moments, I'm able to calm him down. I go, Luke, are you okay? And he goes, yes, Daddy, I'm fine. And while I'm relieved, I now have to explain to a 4-year-old, you can't be screaming unless it's an emergency because it really worries Mommy and Daddy. Do you understand? Yes, Daddy. And off he runs to go play. The next day, Luke came home from school again, and he goes to wash his hands, and the scream started. And once more, I'm forced to explain, you cannot be screaming, Luke, unless it's an emergency. And he assures me that he understands. Unfortunately, that wasn't the last time. For the next 10 days, every day Luke would go to school, come home, and begin screaming. And we didn't know what was happening, but we knew we had to get to the bottom of what was happening to our little boy. We ended up at a child psychologist, and after some sessions with him, they sat us down. And the psychologist goes, Mr. and Mrs. Evans, your son Luke is autistic. And that diagnosis was like a gut punch that took the wind out of me. All those things that you envision for your child, those milestones that you look forward to, playing catch in the front yard, teaching him to drive, helping him handle his first crush, all of those things just faded with this diagnosis. And the psychologist, she continued, she goes, Mr. and Mrs. Evans, it's gonna be very hard for you to understand Luke's perspective. You see, you're using your conventional view of the world, but he's using an unconventional perspective on reality. It's going to be a lot of work. And the next day, Luke went to school and he came home and he started screaming while washing his hands. And with a heavy heart from the diagnosis the previous day, I realized this is not a behavioral issue. This is a perception issue. There's some misalignment. I need to find out what's going on. So as I approached him, I got him calmed down. I decided instead of telling him what to do, instead of directing on what I wanted him to stop doing, I was going to inquire. I want to understand. And I go, Luke, why are you screaming? And he said, Daddy, I'm not screaming. Those are the germs screaming as they fall off my hands. I love that kid. He had inadvertently gamified a task that I wanted him to complete. Originally, I thought he was just screaming as a way to get attention. But I'd absolutely misperceived the situation. Every single one of us has walked into a situation and misperceived what's going on. We make judgment calls based on our knowledge, our expertise, our experiences. But these assumptions limit our options. Instead of being governed by your preconceptions, you need to choose to direct your perceptions. Purpose is not reserved for Patagonia employees and philanthropists. You deserve the deep feeling of fulfillment that comes along with having deep purpose in your work, because the work that you do means so much to those that depend on you. And you have the choice to make. You get to choose whether you're going to perish within your role or whether you're going to reclaim your purpose. Thank you very much.